I show the statistic to people on a regular basis. 91% of businesses in the US make less than $1 million of revenue. 99% of US businesses are under $10 million a year of annual revenue. We call that the CEO doom loop. And you're not alone. Last year, we wrote a white paper called the CEO Playbook, and I did it on family businesses. As you're looking at it and interviewing all these CEOs, it is, am I good enough as a CEO? Do I have the right people? And it's this constant back and forth. Do we have the right strategy? And it's hard.
For the first time, we're producing consistent margin month after month, and it continually gets a little bit better every single month. All that stuff's very positive, but I still woke up this morning like, oh my God, what if this customer does this? I'm telling myself this story. I have to talk myself off that ledge. And it took me like 2 hours to say, all right, well, that's not real. So that's the best story that I can tell you today of something that's not sexy, but it's 100% worse. And what they're doing is changing the culture of the business. Equivalent to hiring a personal trainer, going to the gym with a personal trainer. He works you out. Then you start doing it on your own. He leaves, you fall apart. What UK does is gives you the workout program, teaches you how to diet, teaches you how to mentally think, gives you something sustainable. They're still around if you want them. They don't need to be. And it's been game changing.
A leading voice in family business. You're listening to
The Family Biz Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Family Biz Show. I am your host, Michael Columbus, with Family Wealth and Legacy in Rochester, New York. We've got a great show today. We've got Randy Carr from World Emblem, second generation family business, and really excited to have you here, Randy.
Michael, thank you a lot for having me.
So the number one history or tradition on the show is we just start with talking about how, what did your entry into the family business look like? Was it something that was immediate? Was it something that planned, unplanned? What did that look like for you coming into the family business?
Yeah, I could take the whole hour and do that piece, but I'll do the nickel version. So my father had an emblem business that manufactured emblems and labels in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and it went out of business in the late 80s.
Okay.
And like through high school, in like grade school and everything else, I thought that's where I was going to go. So I never took any of this like schooling seriously at all. And about junior year of high school, or when he started to have some problems, and I started college my first year, and his company went out of business, like instantly, like out of nowhere. I've sort of learned over time now that nothing happens instantly. But he's not around anymore for me to see that or ask those questions. But
right.
What I know now is that nothing happens. Nothing is instant, or very, very seldom. It's just a lot of mistakes over time. But so that said, I was in college and my brother was in college, and he pulled us out of college and said, we're going to restart this business in Medley, Florida. So you need to come with me. And it was either you pay for school and do it yourself, or we're going to restart the business in Medley, which is a suburb of Miami.
Okay.
We had one customer, and I was running machines, and my brother was running the shipping dock. And, one customer leads to two, and, kind of on and on you go.
So it was trial by fire for you, and you pulled right into the family business.
I wish I had more photography. I wish I could make it sound more dramatic, but it was about as dramatic as it gets because,
Sure.
there was nothing. He took whatever he could take from the business that fails. So It was 2 or 3 embroidery machines and some inventory and like an old AS400 computer system. And it was like, I didn't know anything about business or anything. I just knew that he made emblems. But like I couldn't, I didn't know the first thing about it. So so like obviously fast forward now, and 35 years later or 33 years later, and we have 1,200 employees, and we're making 1 million emblems a day on some days. It's like remarkably different a remarkably different scenario.
Sure. So let's talk about that. I mean, we're not. I mean, it's going to be hard to digest 35 years, but
Yeah.
I just want to say congratulations.
I,
It is so hard just running any business, and and I show the statistic to people on a regular basis, and that's 91% of businesses in the U.S. make less than $1 million of revenue. 99% of US businesses are under $10 million a year of annual revenue. To get to 1,600 employees, I know you're far exceed $10 million of revenue. And to do that from grabbing a couple of machines and you and your brother and dad, you know, pulling this thing together over 35 years, that's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. Again, it's not, I don't know if it's anything to like, I appreciate what you're saying. Um, and like for a moment, it's an awesome feeling to hear you say it, but it, like even this morning, I was like, I'm in my Hoshin planning, my annual planning. I woke up at 4:30 this morning and like almost had a panic attack. And like things are really, really good where we are,
Right.
but I'm still like, oh no, like what if this happened? And you start telling yourself stories. So it's every day. There's like
Uh,
another, you sort of go through those, highs and lows, and you almost have to talk yourself off those cliffs. But, but,
100%.
but really appreciate you saying thank you. Really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
We call that the CEO doom loop. It's and you're not alone. Last year we wrote a white paper called the CEO playbook, and I did it on family
Yeah, I know it.
businesses.
I'm familiar with it.
And it just as you're looking at it and interviewing all these CEOs, it is am I good enough as a CEO? Do I have the right people? And it's this constant back and forth. Do we have the
Yeah.
right strategy? And it's hard. It's hard. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's what, thousands and thousands of books and podcasts and consultants and, and it's like anything else, like it's the right recipe at the right time with the right execution. But I mean, we found a couple things that like I swear by now and I know that work.
okay.
And I found a lot more that I know that doesn't work. But I got a couple things that I know that we're doing right.
So
So
So let's talk about let's go back and forth. Let's talk about
yeah,
one
of
thing that you
course.
let's go one thing that you are proud of that you're doing right to share with the audience so that they get
Yeah.
to hear that. And then let's talk about some of the things that like through history, let me just tell you what didn't work. And that's the joy, my joy of this show. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many family businesses or CEOs have written us and said, "Hey Mike, you know what? I just really want to say thank you for XYZ show that you did. That resonated with me so much." So I'm telling you, Randy, the things that you're going to talk about, somebody else is thinking about it and about to do it. So I appreciate it.
So again, appreciate you asking again, and I'll give you like what's relevant now.
Okay.
So, and again, nobody's sort of screwed up more than me and made more mistakes than me. Fortunately, I'm still here. Like, so that's like awesome. But so what's relevant now? So coming out of COVID, and I've told this story before, but coming out of COVID, um, the business starts to tick up a lot like everybody else's. We knew we needed to, we were going to have a hard time getting people back to work. So, and we didn't think that we would be able to financially compensate them as much as enough to augment. I'm sorry, we knew we wouldn't be able to raise prices enough to augment the amount of pay, the comp that we had to pay in order to not reduce our gross margin.
Okay.
So a good friend of mine at YPO, I was talking about it in forum, and he tells me, "Well, try lean." And he's 17 years into lean. He credits it for saving his business during the 2008 financial crisis.
Hmm.
I've read 60 Second Lean I've sort of read a lot of stuff on it, but never really understood what it took. I thought it was just kind of cleaning your desk and putting some stuff on a board and kind of all this stuff. Um, Never really understood the true meaning of it. So he's like, "Look, here's what you do. You call this company in, and it's expensive, but and they're going to show you how much waste you really have. And it's a company that does turnarounds for PE firms.
Okay.
PE firm buys a business, they come in, they rip out all the costs, they roll all these businesses up, and they sell it. Well, I'm not looking to do that. What I was looking to do is to do something sustainable. He goes, that's not the point. You call them in to see what's possible. In a year from now, you're going to know what's possible. And he was right. So I called them in, knew what's possible. We saved a couple $1 million. That's without any capital costs. All of it was consulting. They left and everything fell apart.
Okay.
He says, yeah, that was supposed to happen. The second part of this thing is you call University of Kentucky's True Lean program in, and then you now change your culture. And he was 100% right. So we're now 2 years into that journey, and our gross margins improved 6 points. And for the first time, I can sort of walk around my factory and I don't have to point out things that are wrong. The people there are already problem solving. They're using their T0s, T1s, FMDS boards. They're doing 8-step problem solving. So, for the first time, we're producing consistent margin month after month, and it continually gets a little bit better every single month. Our on-time performances were sometimes it was from 60% one week, 80%, 60. We were known as unreliable. For the last 6 months, we've been in the high 98s, and our revenue's up 15% from last year. So that's all that stuff's very positive. But I still woke up this morning like, oh my God, like, what if this customer does this? I'm like telling myself this story. I have to talk myself off that ledge. And it took me like 2 hours to say, all right, like, that's not real. That's not real. So anyways, but that's the best story that I could tell you today of something that's not sexy, but it's 100% works.
So let me dig into that a little bit, because I think that I've experienced this. I know I've experienced this with other CEOs, and I just want to break it down just a little bit. We bring a consultant in, and the consultant's job, they're not there teaching your team how to. They're teaching you what you need to do. And a lot of times the consultants do a great job of identifying all of these pieces, but then, like you just said, then they leave, but we don't have the team up and running. We don't have the culture to be able to support these pieces. And that's where University of Kentucky, for you, kind of acted like a coach to help you change those pieces. Does that sound right?
It's exactly what happened. The consultants came in, and the reality is I could have kept the consultants on staff and I probably still would have been better, but it wouldn't have been ours, right? So the difference was, UK came in as a true teaching organization. These are the guys from Toyota. They're the ones that set up Georgetown in the Georgetown manufacturing plant. 20, 30-year veterans of Toyota went to go teach at UK. I'm fortunate enough to have them as my coach. They're on site at my factory in Atlanta, in my factory in Mexico. They're actually here with me today doing our mid-year Hoshin review. And what they're doing is changing the culture of the business. I give the example. It's equivalent to hiring a personal trainer, going to the gym with a personal trainer. He works you out. Then you start doing it on your own. He leaves, you fall apart. Right. What UK does is gives you the workout program, teaches you how to diet, teaches you how to mentally think, gives you something sustainable. They're still around if you want them. They don't need to be. And it's been game changing, like really, like remarkable.
Let's talk about this for a second. Look across your first level of leadership team, and then the second level of management. From the time the consultants came in, more so when the University of Kentucky came in to start coaching you guys on culture and what needed to change to be able to make that happen, how many people decided to opt out of making changes?
It was more of collective decision from me with them.
Okay.
And it's still happening. Like, I can tell you, I'll give you my leadership team, for example. It was structured in such a way where, somebody used this word for me the other day. I wouldn't call it the friend tax, but it was like, I'm loyal to these guys tax. So there was 3 or 4 people on my senior team that I had this kind of they've been with me for 30 years, and I had the sense that they had to be in management. And like, it was like, what if what would be the impact on them and me and the business if I moved them out of management? And that an example of that is UK came in and their CHRO development person came in and talked to my HR director and like, dude, your org chart's all wrong. Like you've got to clear up the following. I'm not telling you what to do, but we know from best practices that your org chart's wrong. You need it structured like this, and this. And they put it in front of me, and it was like real clear at that point. It took like 20 minutes for them to point it out. And once they did that, then I had to like have the spine, which I didn't have, but I had to come up with the spine to move people around. And that took me 3 months to do what should have taken me 10 minutes. But it really took me 3 months to tell, nobody got fired or anything, but I had to put people in certain roles and push them off the leadership team. And, one person walked out,
Yeah.
but the reality is, yeah.
No, I think it's so important that, most often, especially in family run businesses where, you've got your brother and your dad are the key, family members right now. But on top of that, you treat the employees, you treat your leadership team members, they've been with you 10, 15, 20, 30
Yeah.
years in your circumstances, they're
Yeah.
family. And so that shift to say some people some people aren't the right people on the bus, that go back to Jim Collins.
100%.
Some people aren't in the right seats of the bus, and some people aren't doing the right things, even though they are in the right, in the right seats. And what you just said, the spine, I will tell you from experience, to do it in 3 months is Herculean for most CEOs. Because I've got several right now that are 2 years into process, 2 years into, you just don't have the right people, but I'm still coaching you on these pieces and going through this with you, and you've got to make those decisions.
I sort of know what I'm bad at this point. Like, I know what I'm not good at. So the nice thing is I do have enough of a leadership team where I'm telling them, hey, like, I know I'm not going to be doing this. You got to push me. And even my leaders will push me, and so we have an open enough correspondence in that
Sure.
respect. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the biggest thing, but it wasn't just that. That was a small sliver of it. It's that plus, roles and responsibilities, plus getting the standard work straight. And we're just talking the factory. We haven't touched the office yet. I haven't touched the sales organization yet. I think the thing like that if that I want to get across is that it's the gift that keeps giving. Because once it's in, the power of 1,200 people, all using problem solving, using standard work. I mean, I'll give you one more example before you like jump topics.
Sure.
There's one thing we do here since the first day, and it's sewing name emblems. Sewing names. The first thing we ever did, sewing name emblems. You would think it's the best thing we do. We sew between all of our locations about 100,000 of these things a day. We get the orders in by 3:00 in the afternoon, and they're all shipping by 7:00 at night. And 100%, 99.9% are on time. You would think we're the best at this process. Just, I don't know, a month ago, we made one change to the way we lay these down on the machines. We picked up 15%.
Wow.
Right. So that's the thing. Like it just keeps giving. It just keeps giving.
Yeah.
So
one of my favorite phrases is "what if."
Yeah, for sure.
What if we tried this? Well, we can try it, and if it doesn't work, we can always go back.
Yeah.
But if you think that there's, if you can open up the idea that maybe there's another way of doing things, the worst words are, well, that's because we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
So good for
There's
you.
that, or yeah. So I feel really good about that.
Nice. So let's change topics for a second. I want to come back to some of the other things, but like you and your brother and your dad started this, this business together.
Yeah.
What are the first 5 years looking like for you? What did you focus on? You went, what was it that allowed you? Most businesses fail in the first 3 years. Why didn't you?
All right. One, it was horrible. First of all, like my brother and I never worked before. Like, so, it was in a warehouse in Medley, which is like sort of not the best part of Miami.
Okay.
Um, and my dad had a nice business before, so we lived pretty well in New Jersey. Um, there was no direction. My dad was a northeastern textile guy, so he was pretty intense. Um, he was just coming off a failing business, so he wasn't feeling the best about things. And so it was a disaster every day. And the first 5 years was a disaster, not the first year, the first 5 years. But, the thing about my dad is he knew people. So he was able to get an order or a customer, and then we would ship stuff. It would never get there. Everything we would ship was wrong, but he was somehow able to keep people engaged because he knew them from his past life. So, every day was hanging on by a thread. Like, I don't know if we made money the first 10 years. He passed away in 2000. And, um, so, I think, uh, after he passed away, there was it's 2000, the internet sort of became, I would say, a little more mainstream, probably
Right.
5 years before. So business starts in 1990. You asked about the first 5 years. I would say between 95 and 2000, we started to dabble with tech.
Okay.
And that probably saved us more than we know now. Just, leaning into what the internet could do for us. None of our competitors were doing it. So there was a lot of, we became very adept at using, the internet to move files around. And I think that was one of the things that put us in a place where we were able to sell to some of the clients we still have today.
I love the fact that you said that because I think we're in a spot right now today that's very similar with everything with AI, and it's it, if you're not using AI and if you're not learning how to use the prompts, and that's really the key word
Yeah.
is how do I prompt AI to get what I'm looking for out of it, and how do I start to utilize these tools? You're going to be a dinosaur 5 years from now. Heck, it could be 5 months from now. The way things are going, as fast as
Without
this is
question.
moving.
I mean, Ray Kurzweil and these guys are thought leaders in the space, and they're saying in 3 years from now, like
Yeah.
the landscape's going to be markedly different, than it is today. Like, again, I'll give you an example. It's a great segue into like what we're doing, but that's exactly, we took all the learning from 25 years ago, where it's the same thing. Like, we're mildly invested in a 3D printing product, heavily invested in two AI things that aren't just the prompting. It's, getting our data ready
Hmm.
for when we can use AI to aggregate and serve our data up to specific audiences, whether it's our own employees, whether it's our customers, whether it's suppliers. The way the AI is going to use the data that exists is only as good as the data is prepped. So, because all it really is aggregating a bunch of data and using intelligence to serve it up in a specific way.
Yeah. I think that I want to make sure we hit that real quick again.
Yeah,
What you're saying is we all have data, whatever business you're in, but it's garbage in, garbage out. No different than computing, but with AI, it's more of it, faster of it. So if you
100%.
don't have your data cleaned up and ready to go, it's just going to give you bad data back out.
Well, you just won't get the
Um,
results you think you're going to get.
yeah.
There's other things you could do with it. Like, we're in the design business. So there's a lot of design tools out there. And, if somebody can figure out how to take the design tools and render a piece of artwork faster, there's a win there. Or
Right.
there's, places where you can arbitrage certain jobs. And that's not to say we're eliminating positions but there is growing without growing. So as the
Yep.
business grows, we don't have to hire the same amount of people we otherwise would have to hire.
Agreed.
So,
And also, I think, like you said, the word augment, I think that's a really useful term in this world. A good designer, like, give me AI and all the graphic stuff that goes with it, and I'm still going to output stuff that looks like garbage because I don't understand
yeah,
the design around graphic design and what it's supposed to look like. But you give that tool to someone who has the eye and has the training and has those pieces built right into their repertoire. and give them AI. Now instead of out producing 100 different things a day, I can do 500 or whatever the math is. And it's just making them better, faster, stronger. That's awesome.
It's both. Like I'm in our planning right now. I stepped out to be in this conversation, and my director of sales is like, well, if I don't have it immediately, how does that help me? I was like, dude, it helps you because, number one, what took us 2 days to do is now going to take us 20 minutes. It might not be immediate, but you're step one of, 1,000-step staircase.
Yeah.
And like step one is the first step. It's the hardest. And it's about changing all those mindsets. But again, I think it goes back to what we did 25 years ago, which is leaning into tech. 25 years ago was a little different. Now I'm surrounded by people that can really take this stuff and run with it. But at the end of the day, the thought isn't much different. It's like lean in, let it take you where it needs to go, but you got to lean in. You got to be willing to like, hitch your wagon to specific horses. And, during COVID, fine, whatever, it was face masks or NFTs or whatever. My marketing director was like, well, NFTs, she was making fun of me. I was like, dude, NFTs maybe no, but the blockchain maybe, yeah, but it's all built on the same infrastructure. So, maybe we try to use AI for the artwork bit and it doesn't work, for example, but we've learned as we went, and all that learning will turn into something, and we're learning before anybody else.
Agreed.
So that's going to give us a competitive advantage over everybody else in our space.
Agreed. You had mentioned YPO earlier. How long have you been a YPO member?
2008.
Okay. So I'm a Vistage member. So
Nice.
we probably have a lot of the same kinds of things. We sat through an AI class, and, I was just blown away at, they have AI for salespeople where you record the call in the background and it tells you, here's where you lost the sale. Here's where you got here's the things that you're doing wrong. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We use AI, so we're this bizarre firm that does, business coaching and, helping people to grow their business, but we also wealth management and business exits, specialists. And, so we want to do tax analysis. And what used to take me 2 hours to go through a tax return, I can plug it into AI and it gives you some incredible data, better than I would have done it. And I get it in 30 seconds.
There's a lot of like, there's a lot of people that are going to get disrupted. There's going to be a lot, but there's also going to be a lot of jobs created too. So like,
it'll all work out in the end. But
right,
like to your point is jump on the bandwagon and start learning what you don't know so that you get exposed to some ideas and some different level of thinking. Find some gurus that you like to listen to.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's it. That's all you really can do right now. I mean, for us, it's find a business problem you have and see if you can use the technology to solve it.
Yeah.
That's what we did in 2 spots, and that's it for now. There will be a third.
Right.
And a fourth and a fifth. But like, that's what I meant about step one of 1,000 staircase step. Like, you got to take that first step. And in this case, that's, we think these are legitimate business problems. One is incredibly challenging. Another one is fairly easy. Clean up your data.
Okay.
So
throughout, that was a big learning point for me, is hearing that you went through that 2000, 1999, 1998, 2000, 2001 time frame and took advantage of it, and you're doing it again now. What were some of the other missteps that, if you look back and say, oh my God, if I could take away those 2 things, I would have loved to have not done that.
I'll give you 2. It always comes back to hiring the wrong people. I'm sure you've heard this one 1,000 times. So one of them was a consultant to do an ERP switchover. And I went, this was around the time of clone computing, where people were building their own workstations. We didn't have a lot of money. I didn't understand the value of R&D that went into the building of a computer. I thought building a clone is the same as building, Dell building a workstation. Again, this is Dad died 2000. The building was valued at 0. The business was valued at 0. And this guy started us off on a 10-year sort of cursed journey in the world of failed ERP implementations and failed development infrastructure. We never could actually get off it. and to what I would say is almost, 5 years ago, where we were just in one bad ERP system versus one bad homegrown piece of software. We built another piece of software to fix that piece of software, and we could just never get out of that loop. Um, and then I hire the guy, like the one guy I make the hire, and he comes in and he sets us on the right path. And what that, you know, for some reason, I had this fear of, once you hire somebody, like to go back to 2000, you hire the computer guy that's doing the work, and you're scared if you fire him, your business is gone.
Right.
And you go through that cycle, and you actually just perpetuate it to make it worse. Um, you end up firing him anyway, because that's inevitably what has to happen. And once we did that, and I got and that, by the way, him and four others behind him, all bad hires, and just no one could ever get it straight after the first one was done. But once you get that right guy, like the magic happens. And, so it always comes back to like, the bad hires and, and I probably have 3 dozen of them but like on the IT side, it was the most, there was never malfeasance or anything like that, but uh, just a bad hire, a bunch of bad decisions. I was overly involved, which is probably part of the problem. We just never could get it straight. And then I would say, half a decade ago or 6 years ago, we finally got it to the point where we're on the right track, and we're now we've replaced all the tech debt. But 8 figures worth of tech debt. It's not a small number.
Right.
And all the lost opportunities that came along with it. So
I think that's in every aspect. We all, we've heard this 1,000 times, but whatever business you're in, that's not the business you're in. The business we're all in is the people business.
yeah,
We have
100% right.
employees, we have clients, customers, we have suppliers, and at the end of the phone, at the end of the email, at the end of the text message, there's a person there. And it's learning how to make the right hires. It's learning how to bring in the right relationships with with customers,
No, it's
find the right
100% right.
suppliers, right?
I mean, even with customers, like, just because they give you money doesn't mean they're a good client.
Yeah.
Like, once you know what you sell and you know what you're really good at, and you know where you're making money, you know what your sweet spot is, only then can you really optimize that, get better at that, and continually to lean into that and make more money.
Right.
I would go back to where we were doing jobs for people that were like sort of offshoots of what we do, and we probably lost as much as we made on the other side for a decade. And those customers happen to be the most difficult. So I would say, even to your point, a bad customer relationship is as bad as having the wrong employee.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the other, keys of your success? And when I want to talk about it from a family perspective, how do you and your brother interact to keep that relationship and the business relationship, in sync?
So again, when we first started, like, neither of us knew anything. Somehow or another, I got this role as CEO with a coin toss. Um, uh, we've grown into our roles over 35 years. We now understand what it means to be a shareholder and it means to be an employee. We own shares in public companies. Both of us own shares in World Emblem. Both of us, if the business does well, we'll take a distribution. If it doesn't, we won't. And then we get our check to work in the business. So he gets his check to work in the sales department, and he reports to my director of sales, who reports to me. He's not on the executive team. He does sit in board meetings with me. But we've only learned to understand that a couple years ago.
Okay.
So getting to this point was not a straight line. It was a rocky, bumpy road where he and I always didn't agree on a lot of things. Again, like, it wasn't enough to break the business, but there were many times where uh, almost fist fights. Times we didn't speak for weeks. Um, a lot of things that we said we shouldn't have said.
Sure. Was
But
your brother on the leadership team at one point?
yeah, because he owned, right? Because he was an owner,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so,
And
and there
so
were, yeah,
you just, I mean, I love what you're
yeah,
talking here. I want to make sure
yeah.
the point
I know where you're
is,
going. Yeah,
yeah, is that there has to come a point in every business when we go from making decisions about the family and decisions as owners to decisions about the company.
yeah.
And once, it's, and for anybody that's, amassed any level of wealth, the odds are, all of a sudden somewhere along the lines, the attorney says, well, we need to put this into trust. And if we don't think about that trust as its own total entity, you're going to get into trouble along the lines. It's got to be a totally separate entity, its own, ID number and everything. And I think that becomes a really good statement around the business is when we start to look at we're just stewards of this business, and hopefully the business will continue long after we're both gone.
Yeah.
And when you start to make that shift, magic does start to happen a little differently. Love that. Good on
Well,
you.
we approached it differently. I mean, and a lot of it came because he didn't like the meetings. He didn't like the 2 hour weekly status meeting and the 3 day planning meetings, and uh, he just didn't like it. And I was like, dude, you don't have to do it. Like, what
Yeah.
are you thinking, bro? Like, if you don't like it, go sell with customers. Go spend time with clients. Like, do what you like. You're
Right.
gonna make if the business does well, you're gonna make more money than you need. So like, don't worry about all that. Like, just do what you're good at, do what you like, and we'll hire somebody to do this stuff. So
So,
yeah,
that's another really good point from another aspect is that not everybody, just because your name is on the door, just because you're an owner of the business, it's a-okay to be an owner and working out in the field, or or in sales or whatever. You do not necessarily have to be um, you know on the leadership team.
it's too bad it took 20 years to figure it out.
Right.
No, but seriously, like, I think back, like, all the opportunities that were missed because of, the fact that my dad died when I was 27, and we didn't have the experience in the business to sort of curtail or not make the mistakes that I've already told you about, that put us down these kind of goofy paths. My son just started working here 6 weeks ago, and he's
Okay.
22. And I'm getting him to that point also, just making sure he understands that. Like, we have a wealth of experience and have a fantastic leadership team now that he can learn from. And like, we didn't have that when we started. So all the experience comes from kind of stubbing your toe.
And to your point on that, real quick, you found the University of Kentucky to help you to implement and change the culture and take, the lean manufacturing ideas and bring them to life for your company. There are plenty of university programs and consultants out there that are working with family businesses. And, with family business being 68, 67, whatever the number is, percent of the businesses that are out there, there's lots of data and there's lots of experience and things that that you can share. Don't go trying to reinvent the wheel all the time.
On one of these podcasts, somebody asked me, what's the one thing, if you could say one thing? And mine was find a mentor.
Mm,
Like, find somebody, like, get involved with YPO, get involved with Vistage, get involved with EO, depending on where you're at. But there are people that there's not, for me, it's, I keep saying, all right, I've seen this before. Like, that's what I keep telling myself. In YPO, they've seen it. Like, there's not a person in YPO that hasn't seen it, and they all want to help. And they don't have a stake in the game like the consultant that I was telling you about 20 minutes ago. They don't care if you don't like their opinion.
right.
The computer consultant cares because he's billing me $10,000 a week. Or at this point, it's $500,000 a week. But it's all relative. The point is that in EO and YPO, everything's experience sharing. No one's telling you what to do. When I had that experience, this is what I went through. This is what I did.
Yep.
That's how I found out with UK and Lean. Like, all that came from that.
In terms of um, the business today, share with us kind of the plethora of offerings. I think it's you're
Yeah.
you're spending your time with us and sharing some things. I'd like to hear a little bit about World Emblem. I know you
Yeah,
make
no,
emblems and do a lot of embroidery, but break that down for the layperson.
yeah, no sweat. So again, the business started in 92, really 90, but we incorporated World Emblem in 92 or maybe 93. Um, and before that, it was like an offshoot of my father's company that failed. Started selling emblem name tags like you'd see on a gas station driver. Then we
Got it.
went to like the specialty emblem with pictures, embroidered with pictures. Um, Fast forward a couple years, we now make sublimated emblems, sublimated badges. We make the badges that on the NFL jerseys on the crest. That's called flex style. That type of badge. We make PVC badges, and leather embossed, leather engraved. Uh, we're probably the largest decorator of headwear in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, so every our stuff can be seen on in the airports on headwear, on jerseys, um, on baseball fields, on UPS drivers, on people at the gas station, waste management, FedEx drivers, kind of that whole sort of
Love
range.
it.
The military, police, yeah, TSA, kind of yeah,
Nope, that's helpful. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, to your other comment about YPO and EO and Vistage and all of these, CEO groups and mentors, there's an old saying that says if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, do it together. And I would echo what you said. If I could go back and wave a magic wand and do things differently, I would have asked for more help.
Yep,
I would have, and what's shocking is like one of my mentors, now in his 80s, and every time I ask him for help on something, he's always, "What can I do?
yep.
What tell me how I can help." And in hindsight, I didn't ask enough of him, and he would have been glad to have shared his experience.
And most of the time, you kind of know you're not doing it. Like I knew I wasn't doing it. Of all the
Yeah.
things that I was doing wrong, I knew it was being done wrong. I knew there was a better way. What I know now is I think I have the confidence that I know it, and I keep telling myself, all right, I've seen this before. And that's like what I was telling you about this morning. All right, man, I've seen this before. Like this has happened before. Like just let it pass or drink water or something. Like if I don't have a good night's sleep, but it's, I've seen this before, this will pass.
Yeah.
And that's my go-to with these things. So,
For your business right now, if you're looking over the next 12 months, what would you say are your top priorities over the next 12 months?
well, probably the biggest thing is to continue the implementation of lean.
Okay.
Um, that's inside of our control. Um, so, we control our gross margin, by continuing to problem solve, and maximize the things that we do really well.
Okay.
Um, again, there's a lot of stuff that's out of our control. Given what happened Saturday and what's happening in the presidential race, what's happening all around the world. So I'm not really going to focus on that. The one thing I should tell you about our business that's unique is that we manufacture in the States, Canada, and Mexico, and we have a factory in Europe. Um, all of our competitors manufacture in China. So, when I talk about manufacturing or controlling what's in our space, it's how do we get orders in and out of our factory in 1 or 2 days or 3 days? My competitors take 7 or 8 weeks to do the same thing. So people pay a little more to buy stuff from us, but they know they're going to get it in the time period that we say they're going to get it. They know they're not going to get what could arguably be more additional tariffs or more trouble coming from a different part of the world. So, again, we'll continue to focus on that, and we'll continue to focus on our tech investment. We invest 9 to 10% of our revenue in technology.
Okay.
So the difference of companies in our space are 3%. So we believe we're a tech firm that manufactures emblems. Most people think they're emblems that have that use technology. We look at tech as a significant strategic advantage. Others look at tech as a cost center, and
Yeah.
I just don't look at it like that. I never will. And I'm hoping we keep that advantage.
Nice. What are the biggest pain points you're trying to solve over the next 2 to 3 years?
Um, we have our ocean, which is our plan, our breakthrough plans. Um, we have a couple products that we're trying to develop. We can't seem to get off the blocks with them. One is a specific type of IP around something I can't get too much into,
Okay.
but we're having a hard time getting focused on that. So I would say that's frustrating. Things that I'm thinking about because we manufacture in Mexico. I'm a little concerned about the political environment in that country as well as the States. Uncomfortable with the amount of inflation, uncomfortable uh, with the environment in Mexico as it relates to electricity and logistics. To the point where we put in full racks of solar panels and full batteries between their power grid and our factory, and we're the largest importer in the world. So mind you, it's quite a few batteries in between the power grid and our plants because of the instability, because of the underinvestment made in electricity in that country. So things like that have me a little concerned that I'm losing sleep over. We have some customer concentration issues that have me losing a little bit of sleep at night. Things like that. I'm not overly concerned about the U.S. or Mexico from a political standpoint. I brought it up a couple times, but I mean, I don't see like the catastrophizing happening. Although you could read. There's a couple books or magazines or whatever you could read and go down that deep end real easy. So, so
1,000%.
yeah.
1,000%. Um, taking a look at, you said you have a son coming into the business.
Yeah.
What is, have you mapped out your succession plan? Have you thought about what's next for you, or, any of those things for you or your brother?
Not as much as I probably should. I'm 52. He's
Still
22.
young.
Yeah. But there's days I'm like, I can't do this for about 10 years. Like I'm still pulling 70-hour weeks, but it's because I like the 70-hour week. It's not because I need to. But I have enough work where I can work 100 hours. So,
Right.
I'm also trying to, I think the biggest thing with my son, though, I should say, is so he's 6 weeks in the business. And when we talk about it at work or at home, I find it interesting that, like, when I'm looking at it from a third person, like an outer body bit, that I want him to be proud. And I never thought like that. So like he's in my Hoshin meeting and I keep looking at him to see, aren't you impressed? Like, aren't you impressed? You got to be impressed. Like, how are you not impressed? So I find that interesting I find that to be, it's not something I expected.
Okay.
Um, but I'm excited for him that he's here. He's in my CR department. He's working in the lead department because I think that that's the most structured area of the business. Then I'll put him in IT. These are
Okay.
the areas that I think are strategic. But he's a charismatic dude, and he's going to naturally gravitate to sales, like I know it. But if he learns these things first, he'll learn a systematic way to optimize the rest of his life. So, and for me, yeah, I mean, at some point, I don't have any intention on selling. But there's always a price. Somebody comes along with a crazy amount of money. But I love the idea of a third generation in the business. Like
Does your brother
how
have
cool is
kids?
that? No,
No. Okay.
no.
And do you have other kids that may think about it?
I do. He's 20. He's on a different path. So
Okay.
his path will be different. My cross for him is that I hope he never needs for anything. That's my piece.
I have 7
So
kids, so totally understand that statement.
yeah.
It's
So
I'll
one's
fuck
path is
around.
one way, one's path is another, and you just kind of hope you're there to support and
Hun-
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I came up with this concept a long time ago called the parent transition, because I screwed it up so badly. And I think that it's, when the children are of certain ages, obviously you have to be the parent. You have to be the one that yells
yeah,
at them to, so that they don't go into the street,
yeah.
and you're there guarding everything. Moving from parent to coach and allowing them to make mistakes and allowing them to do that stuff is really difficult for a lot of people.
Oh,
And
it
then,
sucks.
and then there's another spot that, we really actually, in my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, we need to be colleagues with them because they are, as my son says, I am a grown adult dad. And your opinion, as much as I love you, doesn't really matter
Yeah.
sometimes. And
What
so,
is it? Stephen Covey is like dependent. It's dependent, independent, interdependent. He's got that.
yes, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, with my older one, is a lot of that. I mean, um, yeah, I just hope my relationship stays as good as it is today. But that's on me.
It is. It is that part.
Yeah,
That part's on you. We
yeah,
need to listen more than we talk, and
yeah,
be interested more than we want to tell them.
yeah,
The path to take and whatnot. That was um, I think I've shared this on the show before, but was met with a client who was in hospice and asked him what he most regretted. And he said he had, 4 girls, and the only time that he really spent with them was when everybody was all together. And he wished he had spent some more one-on-one time with each of his
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
And from that, I've started doing at least, once, 2 times a year, a couple times a year, where we're just going out and doing dinner, going out and doing
yeah,
something, and
yeah.
just me and that one kid, so that I can find out what's going on in their world.
There are so many books on like the emotional, like Tuesdays with Lori and
Ah,
the last lecture, and kind of there's sort of all these books on this stuff that you can read them and just get past them, or you can read them and sort of land on, man, I'm gonna die, and when I do, like I ain't gonna regret the money thing.
agreed.
But in the moment,
Agreed.
it's hard to say that.
Yeah. Randy, you have been sharing a ton. I really appreciate it. Let me ask you this. You're sitting, on a family business panel, and you've got an audience in front of you. What would you say your, handful of things that you'd want to make sure that you leave them with?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the old like faithful ones is to surround yourself with good people, and by that it means EO, Vistage, YPO. Like the
Yep.
organizations are ridiculously invaluable, and anybody that's an entrepreneur, it's the first thing I tell them. Uh, the second thing is, like I told you before, this too shall pass. And for me, at this point, I've seen this before, and to have a little faith. And the third, find a mentor. So
Yeah.
nothing I've said is technically grounded in any wisdom. So, but there is a little bit of experience in it. And I'd say like, um,
I
yeah,
I think that's grounded in a lot of things. Very few of us have 1,600 employees, so I think that stubbing your toe and making the mistakes and doing those things, and then if that's the wisdom that you're sharing with us, I think
yeah,
we need to be paying
yeah,
attention to it.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's sort of my go-to, but
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
well, we are, as CEOs of whatever size company we are. Most of us are a little bit, oh, it's been luck. It's, I just worked harder than everybody else. I got a little lucky. We're maybe a little self-deprecating, and we don't pat ourselves on the back enough and don't look at all the good that we've actually brought to the world. And you've done a lot of good. Think about all the
it's,
people, those jobs and their families, and the things that you've done on that side. So give yourself a thumbs up.
appreciate you
Give your,
saying that. Thank you so much. Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Randy Carr, World Emblem. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been, a great show. I hope you've gotten a lot of takeaways. You may have to go back and rewind and listen to some of Randy's wisdom that he dropped on you. My name's Michael Columbus with Family Wealth and Legacy in Rochester, New York. Go ahead and, hit that subscribe button so you can hear this again, and listen to the next episode of the Family Biz Show. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.